One of these free VST plugins is called a Monster. The other one is a Monster. One's a synth plugin, the other is an EQ. So let's start with the EQ plugin. This is Frank V2 from Analog Obsession. Frank is a hybrid EQ that takes components from 4 of the best hardware EQs and pieces them together into this Frankenstein's monster of a EQ plugin. If you've used Frank in the past, this is a completely reworked plugin, reworked for sound and for better CPU usage. The user interface is very nicely laid out, making it easy for you to dial in your sound. So let's check it out and then we'll go over some more of the details. So I have Frank loaded up onto a drum track right now, and I do have some settings dialed in that I was playing with earlier, but I'm going to start with it off and then I'll enable it and adjust some of the settings. So there's Frank on some drums. You can hear it thickens things up and kind of makes them sound nice. I was just playing around with the settings there, nothing too serious. Now let's just test it out quickly on a bass guitar. And again, I'm going to start with it off, and I already have some settings dialed in here. We'll check it out. Again, it thickens up the track and makes the bass guitar sound a little bit better. It was kind of flat sounding before, but now it has a little bit of character to it. So let's go over the sections here and what each section is based on. So the low cut section here is at 50 Hertz and it's based on a Helios EQ. Next, we have our low, attenuate, and boost, which is based on a Pultec, and this is set at 60 Hertz. And then we have our mid section, which is set at 1.6 kilohertz, and this is based on an API EQ. The next section here is our highs, and it's centered at 12 kilohertz, and it's based on a Neve EQ. And then we have our final section here, which is our low pass filter, and this is set to 20 kilohertz, and it's based on a Pultec EQ. So you can see some very nice EQ components in here making up this Frankenstein's monster of an EQ plugin. Plus, if you click on the Analog Obsession logo here, when it's orange, you have oversampling turned on. By default, it's turned off, so you can enable that for even better sound. And if you really like Analog Obsession stuff, because they have a lot of other great plugins that you can grab, they do have a Patreon that you can donate to so they can continue to create these plugins and offer them to you for free. So consider doing that if you really like these plugins and you're in a position where you can donate. Now on to the next monster of a free VST plugin. This is Monster Synth from Agus Hardiman. And I've been a big fan of Agus's Monster instrument plugin, so I was really excited to check this one out. This is a rompler synth, which means it's sample based. So it includes the whole sample library that you have to download separate from the plugin. You install the plugin and then you can put the sample library wherever you want. And the first time that you load up the plugin, it's going to ask you where you put that sample library. Typically what I do is I'll install the plugin into its own folder, then I'll create a subfolder within there for the sample library and put all the samples in there, but you can put them wherever you want. And as you can see, it has a nice clean user interface and the sounds are actually quite inspiring. The first time I listened to it, I actually came up with a beat in my head and I had to create it. We'll check that beat out in just a bit, but first let's have a listen to some of the sounds that are included in here. So that's just some of the sounds we can get out of this Monster Synth. Now let's have a look at some of the sections of this plugin very quickly. You have your filter section that you can choose between low pass, high pass, or no filters. You have your ADSR settings that you can easily dial in, a master volume output here. You have a reverb that you can easily use, glide section here, and then you have a bit of a modulation section at the top. Very nicely laid out. Now let's check out that beat that I created using Monster Synth. I actually used 2 instances of Monster Synth, plus I used the Monster Drum plugin as well. So let's just check out what I've got going on here. So a nice little lo-fi beat right there. I have the main sort of lead synth or whatever you want to call it here. And I'm using one of the bells. So this is what that sounds like on its own. And then I put a little bit of a side chain on there, and it's being side chained from the drums. Kind of adds some character there. Pretty nice. Now let's check out the other synth here. One of the downsides to Monster Synth is there are no actual bass sounds in here. There's some usable sounds, which I found for a bass. This is kind of my bass track, but there is no actual bass sounds. But everything that is included does sound great. It's an excellent synth. So let's check this out. And you can see I use that Frank EQ plugin to kind of thicken things up a bit. And that's our bass. And then we have our drum track here, which is Monster Drums. And this is the Gasinov's Lin kit. So this is what that sounds like. I also have this free tape cassette plugin on there. Frank again to thicken it up. And then I have the free Analog Obsession Buster compressor on there. So let's check it out with all of these turned off. And then I'll enable them a little later on. came up with that very quickly. When I first heard the Monster Synth, I had to put a drum beat in there, maybe add some bass, because I thought this thing was really cool for lo-fi, but I can picture it being used in many other situations as well. Now check out the free Monster drum by clicking the video on the screen. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. For Audio Tech TV, I'm Zane. Keep creating, and we'll talk soon.